My rival went bankrupt and pawned his uncle off on me. The good news, the uncle was hot, in great shape, rich, and didn't look his age. The bad news, he got amnesia right after we signed the marriage license. After thinking it over, I decided this was a golden opportunity to work on our marital bliss. Late that night, I slinked into his bedroom. "Honey, can you help me with my bra?" The usually stoic man's ears turned red the moment his trembling fingers touched my back. I seized the moment. "Honey, buy me a bag?" He nodded. "Honey, buy me a car?" He handed me his card. Later, I pointed eagerly at his holdings tower. "Honey, how about buying a building?" He leaned close to my ear. "Sweetheart, I have amnesia. I'm not an idiot. My husband of 3 hours just got into a car accident." I grumbled about the short warranty period as I rushed home. The whole way, I was sick with worry. My arch nemesis, Leo, had run off after racking up tens of millions in debt to me, saying he'd use his uncle to settle the score. I was about to curse him out for treating me like a pawn, but the second I saw his uncle's picture, I thought, well, maybe that's not so bad. So after a whole lot of pestering on my part, Jack finally agreed to marry me. I dragged him down to City Hall immediately. And what do you know? We signed the papers in the morning, and he's in a car crash by the afternoon. A whole 3 hours of wedded bliss. I'd have to rush to return all the lingerie and high heels I'd bought. If something really happened to Jack, I'd be taking a massive loss. The second I got home, I sprinted straight for Jack's bedroom. I breathed a sigh of relief when I saw his face was still perfectly intact. I took 2 steps forward and clasped the hand hanging off the side of the bed. "Jack, are you okay?" He frowned at me like I was a stranger. The private doctor explained, "Jack is fine physically, but he hit his head and has amnesia." "You mean to tell me all the brownie points I'd worked so hard to earn were just wiped clean?" Judging by the pure, confused look in Jack's eyes, he wasn't faking it. I quietly accepted my fate. After the doctor left, I crouched by Jack's bed and tested the waters. "Honey?" He froze for a second, then his voice came out raspy. "Yes?" My eyes lit up. This could work. If he has amnesia, he definitely doesn't remember that he can't stand me. I slid my hand down his arm. "Are you hurt anywhere else? Let me check you over." He grabbed my hand, plucked it off him, and tossed it away from the blanket before folding his arms over his stomach, clearly on guard. I pulled our 2 marriage certificates out of my purse, my face a mask of sincerity. "You may have forgotten, but we're already married. And kissing, hugging, and touching are all part of our daily routine. Plus, you have to perform your husbandly duties 8 times a week. For over an hour each time." I felt a little guilty as I said it. Maybe I was getting a bit greedy. Jack's expression grew more and more skeptical until he heard that last part. His brow twitched as he looked at me. 8 times a week? I glanced down at his lower half. "Is that a problem?" Jack put the marriage certificates in his nightstand and proceeded to ignore me. I squatted there, scratching my head, then propped my chin in my hands. "Honey, you're so badly hurt. I'm so sad and scared. How about you buy me a purse? You know, retail therapy." Jack slowly opened his eyes. "Go to the bank." My eyes widened. "Which bank?" Tell me. "Go rob one." I grabbed his hand and shook it. I'm so heartbroken. How can a delicate young woman of 18 handle such cruel words? I also conveniently pulled up a picture of a limited edition bag on my phone. Jack glanced at it, then closed his eyes to rest. Ugh, no fun. I grabbed my purse and headed downstairs. How is Jack? Where is he? Please, can I just see him for a minute? A girl in a long white dress stood at the door, poised and graceful. Her delicate, fragile frame and the tears on her face were enough to make anyone's heart ache. No wonder she lasted the longest by Jack's side. Just as the housekeeper was about to send her away, I stopped her. Wait. Let her in. Serena hurried over to me. Ma'am, where is Jack? Ma'am? I stared at her flawless skin and smirked. I couldn't tell if she was blind or just an idiot. Are you even 18, sweetie? I asked, tipping her chin up with my finger. She hesitated for 2 seconds before nodding. Then let's not play the clueless ingenue, okay, hon? Her expression shifted through a fascinating range of emotions before she stubbornly asked again, where is Jack? I pointed to the second floor. Upstairs, first door on the left. Your precious Jack is lying right there. She went upstairs. I sat on the sofa, eating a fruit salad. The housekeeper urged me to go up, but I just waved her off. You're new here, so you might not know. That girl is the apple of his eye. A few minutes later, the sound of shattering porcelain came from upstairs. I swallowed a mouthful of fruit, handed the plate to the housekeeper, and took a sip of tea. Less dressing on the salad next time. I'm on a diet. Then I casually sauntered upstairs. The scene before me was stunning. That fragile, delicate girl was raising a second vase, about to smash it on Jack. My shock was comparable to seeing a linebacker in a tutu, or a Hell's Angel knitting a sweater. Put that down. Do you have any idea how much that vase costs, you lunatic? Faster than I could think, I lunged for the vase, but my foot slipped, and I went flying straight toward Jack on the bed. Crack. My head exploded in pain. I wanted to turn around and scream at the little princess, maybe slap her a few times, but she was Jack's darling. I couldn't do it in front of him. I had to use my last ounce of strength to play the victim. Honey, it hurts. Jack's face was terrifyingly dark as he swept me into his arms, rushed me downstairs, and called an ambulance. When I woke up, I had an .4 in my hand. Jack was sitting by the bed, his eyes filled with a worry so thick you could cut it with a knife. I managed to squeeze out a few tears, and my eyes met his as they opened. Honey, it hurts. Jack's lips were a thin, tight line. He looked angry. I held my arms out to him, testing him. My head hurts. He came to my bedside and carefully wrapped his arms around me. His voice was heavy. Next time, you make sure you're safe first. I was about to nod when he spoke again. No matter what, you come first. Do you understand? Was he getting into character as a husband? I took a deep breath and nodded, resting my head against his waist. That bag you wanted, what color? His cool voice floated down from above me. I was so thrilled I almost shot upright. Jack anticipated my move, cupping my face in his hands and leaning down to look me in the eye. Don't move your head. I stared at him with wide, hopeful eyes. Jack smiled. I'll buy you all of them, how about that? I sighed internally. This wasn't some uncle 6 years my senior. This was husband material. I leaned in, aiming for a kiss. We were a millimeter apart. Our breath mingled. Jack's Adam's apple bobbed, his dark eyes deep enough to pull me in. I stared into his eyes, but then I suddenly remembered the little princess he was keeping on the side. Jack, you should probably go back to your precious darling. I'm worried she'll come back and attack me again. Jack frowned. Who is she? Did I have a relationship with her? I studied him for a long time. He didn't seem to be acting. So I told him everything I knew. I heard you spent a fortune to get her the lead role in a movie. Not true. The company put out a statement. It was just a business collaboration. I heard you personally designed a piece of jewelry for her that made her the star of the red carpet. Not true. We just hired her as a brand ambassador. I heard the paparazzi caught the two of you going into a luxury apartment building late at night, and you didn't come out until morning. Jenny. I'll admit, I might have been embellishing things a little, but those were the rumors. Jack leaned down, meeting my guilty eyes. Oh. Then why did you still marry me? I launched into a stream of compliments. Because you're handsome, talented, and can go 8 times a week? They all say we're a pair of wolves, a perfect match. A smile touched Jack's lips. He leaned back, gently touching the bandage on my head. If I'm such a scoundrel, why would you still want to marry me? I blinked. Of course I would. You have money and connections, duh. Because I like you, of course. The smile in Jack's eyes deepened as he toyed with my fingers. Stop joking. I lost my memory, not my mind. I looked down. Well, you spend a fortune on other people, but when it comes to me, I get nothing. Maybe I should just give her my spot. We can get a divorce, and you two can live happily ever after. Jack tapped my head. Don't be angry. What do you want? I want your business contacts, I thought, but didn't say it. I'll tell you when I think of it. For now, you can buy me a condo. Jack's brow twitched, as if he hadn't expected me to be so brazenly materialistic, but he still handed me a card. A jolt of pure joy shot through me. The moment Jack was gone, I transferred the full amount to my company's account. I was so happy. My company could survive for another couple of days. In one day, Jack gets into a car accident and gets amnesia, and then I get knocked out by his side piece. It was a string of bad luck, to say the least. So, Jack's mother decided our horoscopes were incompatible and ordered him to leave me. I sat in the car, listening to her voice on the speakerphone. That woman is a jinx. Don't even think about letting her into the booths. Jack reassuringly stroked my fingers. Honestly, I didn't care. I was scrolling on my phone when I heard his mother again. Come home this week. I've arranged for you to meet the mayor's daughter. She's 1,000 times better than that jinx you're with. I closed my phone and shot Jack a glare. Ma'am, even if you don't like me, you'll have to wait 30 days. What? What do you mean? There's a mandatory 30-day cooling-off period for a divorce. Forgot to tell you, we just got our license today. I could hear the sound of his mother smashing a vase through the phone. I expected Jack to scold me, but instead, he said to his mother, you see? Your daughter-in-law has a temper. It's best not to provoke her in the future. Also, I have no intention of divorcing her. If you like someone else so much, you can marry them yourself. Jack glanced at me and squeezed my hand hard. He was probably mad that I'd mentioned divorce. After he hung up, his jaw was tight. I sidled up next to him and linked my arm through his. Honey, don't be mad. I only said that to piss off your mom. I don't want a divorce. Jack stared into my eyes for a long moment before speaking. Don't joke about things like that. Fine. I wrapped my arms around his neck and kissed his cheek. Don't be mad. I promise it won't happen again. Jack was easy to placate. He took my hand in his again. Before we got married, Jack and I had an agreement. He'd take the master bedroom, and I'd take the guest room. So, all my things were in the guest room. Without thinking, I slipped inside, not seeing Jack's hand reach out to stop me. After I showered and was drying my hair, the housekeeper, Mary, discreetly told me, Jack said the dressing on his back needs to be changed. I rubbed my wet hair with a towel. Can you help him with it? I'm just drying my hair. Mary hesitated. He's told me 3 times. I think he wants you to do it. Maybe you should go check on him. I clicked the hairdryer off. Tell him to wait a minute. Once my hair was dry, I gathered my nightgown and ran upstairs. Jack was standing with his back to me in a deep blue pajama set, his hair still slightly damp. I padded up behind him and wrapped my arms around his neck, so sleepy I could barely keep my eyes open. Why didn't you ask Mary to change it? I was about to go to bed. Jack grabbed my wrists and pulled me into his lap. Before I knew it, I was sitting squarely on his knees. His hand rested on my waist, burning hot. His eyes were impossibly dark, as if he were holding something back with immense effort. But all I wanted was to sleep. A deep, dreamless sleep. I reached out and unbuttoned his shirt, one button at a time. Let me see your wound. He was tense the whole time, like he was holding his breath. I had no idea why. After I changed his dressing, I went to the bathroom to wash my hands. When I looked up, Jack was standing right behind me. His eyes were like deep pools of water, his voice laced with ice. Jenny, I found a divorce agreement on your computer. Oh, crap. I forgot to delete it. Okay, think. How do I spin this? Oh, that. I was just drafting it for a friend. But it has your signature on it. Are you that eager to divorce me? He had me pinned against the bathroom counter. I couldn't move. Why would I ever divorce you? You're so good to me. Before I could finish, Jack cut me off. Did you marry me because you love me? My eyes darted away guiltily. Jack's hand, hanging at his side, clenched and unclenched. His gaze was glacial. You only married me because of Leo, didn't you? Leo was his nephew, and my rival. He was the one who pawned Jack off on me when his business went under. Leo told me his uncle was handsome and rich, and that if I married him and then divorced him, I could get half his assets. Leo's role was to keep me updated on his uncle's every move. So, Jack wasn't wrong. I did marry him because of Leo. But how could I explain that? Tell him I married him partly for his looks, and partly so I could take half his fortune in a divorce? I didn't have the guts. As I stood there trying to think, Jack's expression grew darker and darker. In the end, he just shut down, rolling over in bed with his back to me. I crouched in front of him and poked his arm. No reaction. Jack, I definitely love you. Otherwise, with my personality, I never would have married you. Jack, I know I was wrong. Still nothing. Finally, I decided to go back to my own room to sleep. Whatever it was, we could deal with it tomorrow. I ended up sleeping until 2 in the afternoon. By the time I woke up, Jack had already left for the office. I had a banquet to attend that evening, so I pushed the whole placating Jack thing to the back of my mind. I grabbed a young actor I was sponsoring to be my date for the evening. I'd single-handedly launched the kid's career. He wasn't a big star, but he was good enough for handling boring parties. Babe, I'm getting, like, a super intense vibe here, he said. The kid was kind of a bro, and his speech was peppered with slang. I took a thoughtful sniff of the air. An intense vibe? All I smell is the intoxicating scent of old money. And another thing, sweetie, talk less. That face is wasted every time you open your mouth. Did you even go to those elocution lessons I paid for? I was constantly worrying about these things. Being a patron of the arts was exhausting. Was there anyone else out there working this hard? I went. I'm, like, a respectable dude. I don't think I have an accent or whatever. He made me laugh so hard I teared up. Then I looked up, and the smile froze on my face. Staring daggers at us from across the room was none other than Jack. Dude, I said, next time you sense a death stare, give me a heads up so I can put some distance between us. Jack shot me a cool glance and then disappeared into the crowd. I sighed in frustration. I hadn't even managed to smooth things over with him, and now I'd just made him even angrier. If I'd known collecting a debt would be this much trouble, I never would have married him. I should have just made that little punk Leo wait on me hand and foot, treating me like a queen. I tried to drown my sorrows in alcohol, but the more I drank, the more miserable I became. Eventually, I couldn't stand straight and ended up leaning against my date, sobbing. I never should have married him. The actor tugged on my arm. I regret it. Jenny, maybe don't say that so loud. I wasn't listening. I'm divorcing him when I get home. I'm done with this crap. Jenny, intense vibe. I blearily opened my eyes. Intense vibe? Where? All I saw was Jack, his face an icy mask. I pointed a wobbly finger at him. Jack, I'm divorcing you. Go find your precious debutante. I'm so done trying to make you happy. I was just venting, but it was obvious Jack was beyond furious. He grabbed my arm and dragged me out of there. Jack carried me home. I was drunk, but I could still feel the crushing pressure in the air. So I kept my eyes closed and played dead the whole way. The second we were home, I made a break for the guest room, moving with a speed and agility he couldn't match. Click. I locked the door, giving Jack absolutely no chance to confront me. After washing up, I crawled into bed and buried my head under the covers, falling into a dead sleep. I woke up in the middle of the night, parched, but I didn't dare leave the room. I pressed my ear to the door, listening for any sound from outside. Nothing. I quietly opened the door and peeked out. It was pitch black. The lights on the second floor were off. It was so late, Jack must have been asleep. I kicked off my slippers and tiptoed to the kitchen for a drink. As I passed the dining room, the faint smell of alcohol and tobacco hung in the air. It wasn't until I saw the tiny red glow that I realized Jack was sitting there in the dark, watching me like a predator stalking its prey, his presence intensely invasive. I turned to run. But Jack was faster. His arms snaked around my waist, and I fell into his lap, too scared to move or speak. My hand trembled as I grabbed his, my fingers brushing against the cool metal of the ring on his finger. Jack's voice was hoarse. Trying to leave? Leave his lap? I thought. The buckle of his belt was digging into me, so I nodded. The next second, the pressure on my waist was gone. Go on. I stood up and took a hesitant step. Jack, I'm going. Suddenly, the world turned upside down. Jack had thrown me over his shoulder. Wait, Jack. You liar. I knew I couldn't escape what was coming. I clung to Jack's neck to keep him from dropping me. Honey, I won't divorce you. I'll never leave you, not even if I die. Don't drop me. I'm afraid of heights, and it'll hurt. Honey, I'm so sorry. I really know I was wrong. I'll never say I'm leaving you again. Jack gently placed me on the bed and flipped on the light. The harsh glare felt like a new lease on life. I hopped off the bed and stood on my toes to wrap my arms around his neck. Honey, that guy talks like a total frat boy. I don't like him. I like you the most. You're the one I love. I will never, ever divorce you. This old man's anger was silent and suffocating. It was driving me crazy. So I kissed him, my lips gently parting his. Jack's face was a mask of calm, but the second my lips touched his hand was on the small of my back. The warm, rough texture of his palm sent a jolt through the thin fabric of my clothes. My own voice grew husky. Jack, lean down. Jack simply lifted me by my hips, letting my legs wrap around his waist. My fingers tangled in his hair, weaving through the strands, deep and intimate. Jack tumbled with me onto the bed. He supported my back with one hand, his eyes glistening with unshed tears, impossibly beautiful in the dim light. Jenny, he whispered my name, his gaze serious even in the heat of the moment. Don't lie to me. I don't know how to make you stay, but I'll do everything I can. I'll give you anything you want. That's the most I can promise. I swallowed nervously, afraid he'd see the hesitation in my eyes. My family life hadn't been happy. Marriage was never part of my plan, and the idea of spending forever with one person was something I'd never even considered. But what was the point of overthinking? The outcome was the same either way. I might as well just see where this goes. So I lied to him again. Jack, I love you so much. I'll never leave you. Plink. A tear fell from his eye, landing on my collarbone. He covered my eyes with his palm, and then his lips were on mine, hotter and more fierce than any kiss before. It was a wild night. The next day, I slept until 6 in the evening. When I woke up, Mary told me, Jenny, Jack called many times. He said you must call him back as soon as you wake up. I rubbed my eyes, my brain slowly rebooting before I nodded. Dinner is ready. I'll bring it up. Mary left. I got dressed and went to the bathroom. The mirror reflected a constellation of hickeys all over my body that no amount of clothing could hide. Last night's battle had clearly been intense. No wonder I'd slept until now. Jack probably thought I'd fallen into a coma. I had just picked up my phone to call him when a sharp, middle-aged woman's voice barked from downstairs. She needs her food brought up to her. Who does she think she is, with her low-class habits? Go on, tell her to get down here and see me now. Mary came up with a tray of food and locked the door behind her with a soft click. Jenny, eat first. I called Jack. He said you should eat, and he'll be back soon. I just picked up a piece of broccoli when the door started rattling from furious kicking. An elder is here and you hide in your room? You have no manners, you little brat. Come out here. I want you to see what a real lady looks like. A woman like you doesn't deserve Jack. He's so outstanding, only the mayor's daughter is good enough for him. Oh. So she brought the girl with her? I put down my chopsticks and headed for the door. Jack's mother was as aggressive as ever, which made the girl next to her seem quiet and almost introverted. I was wearing an ankle-length, apricot-colored nightgown, and the red marks on my skin were exposed for all to see, a glaring sight. His mother was clearly provoked. She pointed a finger at my nose and spat, shameless. Isabel, she's just a piece of trash. In the end, Jack will marry you. The girl, Isabel, looked mortified. She bit her lip. Ma'am, you don't have to force it. If Jack really likes her, I won't stand in the way. To save face in front of the girl, his mother raised her hand and a stinging slap landed squarely on my cheek. I casually grabbed a vase and hurled it at them. One wasn't enough, so I threw another, and another, and another, 5 in total. I smashed them with the celebratory fervor of New Year's firecrackers. His mother was stunned. Stop it. Do you know how expensive these are? Of course I knew they were expensive. After the little princess smashed the first one, I'd replace them all with fakes and put the real ones in a safe. These were a buy 3, get 2 free special. Very cheap. I grabbed another one that felt good in my hand, raising it high. Get out, or I'll smash them all. And don't come back. I have a bad temper. If I snap, no one can stop me. Jack's mother looked furious. The girl beside her looked even more so. Isabel, let's go. I'll have Jack apologize to you later. My daughter-in-law will be you, no matter what. I would rather die than let anyone else into the booths. Heh, who'd want in? After they left, I told Mary, please clean this up. Starting today, I'm moving into the guest room. Oh, and I put a bunch of identical vases in the downstairs storage room. Please find them and put them out. Before Mary could object, I was already heading downstairs. I closed the door, put on my headphones, and the world went quiet. I focused on my work. As I watched my company's profits soar, I calculated how much Leo still owed me. Just 10 million left. I'd break even soon. When that happened, I'd come clean with Jack. Then he could marry the mayor's daughter or the governor's niece for all I cared. Jack used his key to open the guest room door while I was standing quietly at the window, staring into the distance. He slowly walked up behind me, bent down slightly, and hesitantly wrapped his arms around me from behind. Jenny, you've been through a lot. I hid the weariness in my eyes and turned to face him. Honey, I'm so upset. Your mom slapped me. I turned my cheek to show him the red finger marks. Jack's jaw was clenched, his eyes filled with pain. I'll get an ice pack. I caught his hand and turned to hug his waist tightly, my voice choked with emotion. Honey, your mom wants you to marry the mayor's daughter. She said I'm not good enough for you. Jack's heart must have been breaking. He clumsily tried to comfort me. How could that be? Didn't you say we were a pair of wolves, a perfect match? He was at a loss for what to do. I shook my head, my tears soaking his shirt. I saw the mayor's daughter today. She's the one who's a perfect match for you. Jack's large hand gently patted my back as he kissed my cheek over and over. Don't cry, okay? I'll give you anything you want. I looked up at him, my eyes swimming in tears. I don't want anything anymore. If one day, I'm forced to leave you, I hope you won't hate me. It's not what I want. I figured I should lay some groundwork. I might have to leave one day, and this way Jack would be mentally prepared. The rules of high society were too much, and his mother was a nightmare. I wasn't sure how much longer I wanted to be tangled up with him. Jack's pupils constricted, his breath catching in his throat. His fingers, cool and trembling, stroked my face. Jenny, that day will never come. He was scared. His fingers were shaking. Before I could speak, a chill touched my ring finger. I looked down and was nearly blinded. So big, so sparkly, I loved it so much. My life was finally looking up. Was his mom's nagging really that bad? It was just a little turbulence on my flight to becoming a rich woman. I tilted my head back to admire my huge diamond ring and accidentally met Jack's smiling eyes. They were gentle and reserved, and for a moment, I couldn't look away. Old man, are you like this with other women? I threw myself into his arms, my eyes full of mischief. Jack leaned down and gave me a feather-light kiss. Never. You're the only one. Old man, don't you think my neck is missing something? It was covered in red marks. Jack's rough thumb traced a line across my neck. It's missing a sapphire necklace. My eyes lit up. The chain has to be diamond encrusted. I like things that sparkle. Jack smiled and nodded. Old man, old man. Jack sighed helplessly. Jenny, don't call me that. It makes me feel like your grandpa. I hooked my arm around his neck and leaned close to his ear. But old man, weren't you the one begging me to call you that last night? Jack started taking me to banquets frequently, introducing me to a lot of clients. He generously laid his resources out for me, and we shared everything. Thanks to him, I actually managed to save my family's company. I thought I could slowly learn to accept him, but then Leo came back. That evening, outside a fancy restaurant, Leo pointed to the couple on a date inside. It was Jack and the mayor's daughter. One was reserved and stoic, the other was elegant and graceful. Jack's mother was right, they really did look perfect together. Leo leaned back, his tone nonchalant. I told you. Businessmen always put profit before people. Even my uncle is no exception. The family business is in trouble, the capital chain is broken. My uncle has to suck up to the mayor's daughter. A pang of heartache hit me before the anger did. Jack, such a formal and proper man, had to bow to power for the sake of money and reputation. I clutched the diamond ring under my sleeve, a sudden tightness in my chest. I'd already gotten more money from Jack than I could have ever earned in my life. It was time to cash out. I could barely keep my own business afloat, let alone help him through a crisis. The least I could do was let him do it with some dignity, without the stain of cheating on his wife while courting someone else. I pretended not to care. So what? All I ever wanted was money. Now that I have it, it's time for me to make a clean exit. But my hands were trembling. Leo gave me an approving look. Heartless. That's good. He glanced back at the couple inside and sighed. Well, since you don't care, I might as well tell you. They'll probably set a wedding date as soon as you two are divorced. Leave it to my rival to know exactly how to twist the knife. My throat felt tight, and my voice came out strained. I made a fortune off him. I'll be sure to get them a huge wedding gift. The couple inside stood up to leave. Leo and I turned, got into a taxi, and went our separate ways. By the time Jack got home, I had already packed all my things. I'd arrived at this house with nothing. Everything I owned, Jack had bought for me, piece by piece. Entire sets of jewelry, several properties, I wasn't planning on taking any of it. Jack had revived my company. From now on, I wasn't going to rely on anyone else. Jenny, I brought you that ice cream cake you were craving the other day. I ignored him. I kept my back to him, drinking on the balcony. Jack walked toward me, his hands slowly reaching out to hug me. I decisively took 2 steps away, creating a distance between us. Jack's hand froze in midair. He looked at me, lost. Jenny? Deep down, I knew he'd just had a meal with someone else, that he'd just humbled himself a little to appease them. But I steeled myself and said, the divorce papers are on the table. His pupils contracted, his breath catching in his throat. The hand hovering in the air fell limply to his side. He sounded like he couldn't believe it. What, did you say? I downed the last of my wine. You probably don't know this, but our marriage was just a contract. I pulled out the original agreement. It clearly stated the terms of our arrangement. It clearly proved that between us, there was only business, no feelings. Jack's hand was shaking as he took the papers. When he finished reading, he threw them aside and pulled me into a desperate hug, his voice strained. Jenny, don't joke like this. I pushed him away and pointed to the new divorce papers on the table. I only married you for the money. Now you're worthless to me. A film of moisture glossed over Jack's eyes. We stared at each other in silence. After a long moment, Jack's Adam's apple bobbed. So when you said you loved me, it was all a lie. What do you think? You gave me money, so I said a few sweet things. It was a good deal for me either way. Understanding dawned on Jack's face. He watched me silently for what felt like an eternity, the air thick and still. Finally, he slammed the divorce agreement on the table, the ring on his finger making a sharp, clear sound against the wood. When he looked up again, his eyes were bloodshot, burning like fire. We were both destroyed. Jenny, I'm asking you one last time. I cut him off. I never loved you. We're done. As I walked past him, Jack reached out and only managed to grab the hem of my shirt. Before I got into the car with my suitcase, I glanced back. The house was silent and dark, with not a single light on. The wind blew, making the house seem even more desolate. All the love and hope had been corroded in the darkness. My heart was bleeding. Damn it. If I'd known it would hurt this much, I never would have gotten into this mess. I went home and cried all night. The next day, I went to work with puffy, swollen eyes. Even fate was against me. When I stepped into my apartment building's elevator, I saw Jack. The doors stayed open for a long time. I just stood there, frozen, unable to process it. A gentle female voice came from behind me. Jack, you forgot your suit jacket. Early in the morning, coming out of the same apartment. It looked like Leo was right about their wedding being soon. I took a deep breath. I'd forgotten. We were in the middle of divorce proceedings. We would be completely over soon. Whatever he did had nothing to do with me. I stepped into the elevator and stood in front of Jack, pretending not to know him as I scrolled through my phone. The elevator descended slowly, stopping on the 17th floor. The doors opened, and a Samoyed bounded toward me. I'm afraid of dogs, so I had no choice but to back up. In my haste, my high heel scraped against the toe of Jack's shoe. I had nowhere else to go. Jack grabbed my arm and pulled me behind him. The ring on his finger brushed against the soft skin of my wrist, an itchy, cool sensation. The entire time, his expression remained completely blank. I didn't say a word. The elevator reached the parking garage, and we went our separate ways. During my lunch break, Leo came to my office to take me out. He told me Jack's wedding was set for 2 months from now. And you know what's even funnier, Jenny? My uncle's new marital home is in the same building as yours. And on the same floor as me. He's my new neighbor, I added, spinning a pen without looking up. Holy crap. The soundproofing in your building sucks. Does that mean you're going to hear them every time they, have marital relations? He was really twisting the knife. Leo looked at me with pity. I didn't think my uncle was so petty. This is his way of getting revenge on you. I pressed my lips together and didn't argue. Seeing my gloomy mood, Leo dragged me to a bar to cheer me up. He acted like my own personal matchmaker, pointing out different guys for me. One by one, I rejected them all. Too skinny, too muscular, too sleazy. I didn't like any of them. So I just sat there, nursing my drink. Leo put his arm around my shoulders. What exactly is your type? I took a sip of the bitter alcohol. As the flavor mellowed on my tongue, an image of Jack floated into my mind. The alcohol went to my head, and my eyes began to burn. No one else could be like Jack. He was so proper and old-fashioned, like bitter medicine that was subtly soothing. I like someone mature. I like that old-fashioned quality he has. I like how he buttons his shirt all the way to the top and ties his tie so perfectly. I liked kicking my heels off next to his neatly arranged shoes. I liked jumping on him when he got home from work and seeing his helpless expression. I liked rolling around on his perfectly made bed before he'd scoop me into his arms. I liked how he could solve any problem, how he always stood behind me, ready to back me up. I pressed my lips together, unable to say any more. A tear splashed into my drink, its taste hard to describe. Leo sighed and pulled out his phone. Through a hazy fog, I heard Jack's cold voice. I'm meeting Isabel's family. I'll call you back later. A sharp pain shot through my heart. I unconsciously took another big gulp of my drink. Jenny, she's... I quickly covered Leo's mouth. I like that one. What's his name? I'm taking him home tonight. Jack's voice came through the phone, low and detached. You don't need to report things like this to me anymore. The line went dead. I held the phone in silence for a long time. I finished my last drink and stood up unsteadily. My head hurts. I'm going home to sleep. Leo grabbed his coat to take me, but he got an urgent call from work. He had to ask a trusted friend to see me home instead. My high heels made me stumble several times on the way. Finally, Leo's friend couldn't take it anymore and just swept me up into his arms. He carried my shoes while I swayed drunkenly in his embrace. The elevator doors opened, and there stood Jack. His tie was loose, his suit jacket slung casually over his arm, and his eyes were black and deep. I turned my head to avoid his gaze. Jack looked away and stepped into the elevator, his presence overwhelming. I pretended not to see him. After sending Leo's friend off, I lay on my bed alone, my head throbbing too much to sleep. I forced myself to order some hangover medicine on my phone. Half an hour later, there was a knock on the door. My face was pale as I grabbed the doorknob, my body leaning against the door, about to slide to the floor. Jack was standing outside, holding my medicine. I didn't want to talk. I just reached for the bag. Thanks. But Jack blocked the door. I lost my footing and started to fall, but he caught me and pulled me into his arms. His scent of pine and something slightly bitter wasn't exactly pleasant. My heart clenched and tears started to fall without reason, my eyes instantly turning red. I couldn't look at him and instinctively tried to pull away. But Jack held me gently, his rough thumb wiping the tears from my face. His voice was low. Jenny, why are you crying? What did he think he was doing? Wasn't he about to get married to someone else? I turned my face away, my voice muffled. What do you care? Get out. I need to sleep. But Jack's hand tightened on my waist, the ring on his finger pressing against me through the fabric. Why did you say all those cruel things when you left? I pursed my lips. Because I really don't know. Before I could finish, his lips were on mine, swallowing my words. I desperately leaned back to avoid his kiss, but he cupped the back of my head, making it impossible to resist. You returned all the jewelry I gave you, untouched. But the diamond ring was missing. What, do you want it back to give to your new wife? I continued to play dumb. Yes. Give it back to me. Furious, I stormed back into my apartment. Jack followed me into the bedroom as I rummaged through my vanity, looking for the ring. The next second, a warm body pressed against my back. He held me tightly, showing no sign of letting go. Take the ring and get out of my house. Consider it my wedding gift to you. Jack released me and stood there quietly, his eyes full of understanding. Jenny, you were going to sell the jewelry to help me get through my company's crisis, weren't you? I pursed my lips and turned away. And you only kept this one, seemingly insignificant diamond ring, because you still love me, don't you? My back went rigid. He'd figured it all out. He wrapped his arms around me from behind, a whisper-like kiss landing by my ear. I broke free from his embrace, my eyes red. So what if I do? You're getting married anyway, and I... Jack ruffled my hair and pulled me into a helpless hug. Jenny, we were just putting on a show. It turned out Isabel had no interest in Jack either. They were just faking it to get their families off their backs. Isabel was helping Jack through his company's rough patch, and in return, Jack was helping her hide her relationship with a certain young actress. Isabel was in love with Serena, the same girl who'd tried to brain me with a vase. I was completely shocked. Meeting her parents was just a ruse to get them to lower their guard. Isabel and the woman she loves have already run off to another country. I looked up at him. So, our divorce papers? I was lying. I never signed them. I threw myself into his arms, hugging his waist tightly as my tears soaked the front of his shirt. You jerk. Why didn't you say so sooner? Do you have any idea how miserable I've been? Jack reached out and wiped my tears away, his voice gentle. Jenny, you never gave me a chance to explain. I had shut him out with a cold shoulder so many times. I was a real piece of work, too. Honey, you didn't sell my jewelry, did you? That was my main concern. Jack smiled and shook his head. Honey, you said you'd buy me a building. Don't you forget. The Booths Holdings Tower. Jack slipped the diamond ring back on my finger. Hearing my words, he gave my hand a little squeeze. I just thought of something important. I said, hooking my arms around his neck and looking at him with pleading eyes. Go on. Honey, will you still have enough money for me to squander in the future? Jack let out a helpless sigh. For the rest of your life, I've got you covered.